they may or may not work for any of you, but just wanted them to get their story out and you guys to be able to ask the question. So I think you all know it, but just quickly, Brian, just introduce yourself and Dave and Bill.
Sure. Hey guys. Brian Mahoney. I've been with EMGA for 24 years, serving as executive director for 6, and then executive director and CEO for the last year.
Dave Eaton, I'm the communications director for the Rochester District Golf Association. I've been there for 11 years now. I'm here in place of our executive director, Tim Vangelo, who had a family emergency, couldn't be here.
I'm Bill Moore. I'm executive director of the New York State Golf Association. I've been in that role 21 years now, and then a couple of years of boat right before that. So I was so good at the boat right, I went right to executive director. So, good luck, kids.
Well, thank you. And if you guys have questions throughout, just feel free to ask them. It's, again, intended to be casual. I have some prompt questions, but Brian, I'll start with you. How long has the MGA been on HubSpot, and how has it gone?
So we, I think we've been kind of power users for about 3 years. As we were kind of all going through the CRM, evaluation, we actually got a false start with Salesforce. We started with them 4 or 5 years ago, and immediately pivoted. And a big reason for that was really not only kind of guidance from our friends in Liberty Corner, but also from leaders like Rick Rangel and others that were dabbling in HubSpot and made it worthy of being examined. And I think from our point of view, it's really been a great marriage for our association.
And then just to follow up to that, just in your words, what is a business unit, and what prompted you to offer New York and Rochester a business unit?
Yeah, I think that's probably the reason many people are in the room. And again, this is, I think the origin of this session is really kind of inquiries from the group. So this can be a very long-winded answer, but the reason being is I think you have to have some background to kind of understand me and the MGA spirit. So first, the MGA is an institution. We have a lot of different client associations. So we have 11 different client associations that we help power in the mid area. Those range from U.S. Seniors, which is a national organization, to club managers, superintendents, etc. So the idea of shared resources is very familiar to us. We do a lot of things in the building to kind of optimize, tech horizontally. So I want to kind of make sure you have that background. A few years ago, really to the credit of Bill Moore, the MGA in New York State, we have a very specific overlap in geographical area. So as a result, we had a lot of member clubs that would ask questions and get confused by alphabet soup, right? From billing questions, etc. And again, we're really, to the credit of Bill, we created a commercial relationship where we kind of aggregated membership, and that's been wildly successful, I think, from both of our points of view. As the MGA was continuing to invest in HubSpot, it led to a very organic conversation about partnership and a continued partnership, with Bill and with New York State. And that's really what kind of got us there, the notion of shared resources, combining efforts, and again, kind of the unification of New York State. And again, already having that commercial relationship, really helped, because I think if you're entering into any partnership, you have to have trust, you got to have good communication, etc. But from our point of view, it was organic, it was natural, and it was kind of a real healthy evolution of our already pre-existing relationship.
Thanks. So Bill, when just building on that, from your perspective, as you evaluated the CRM, what you had, what you were thinking about doing, what led you to want the business unit of the special zone?
Yeah, so we looked at, we were Golf Nations users at the time, full suite with their CRM, which really hadn't evolved in a way that it really helped us out. In addition, we were still using MailChimp on the side, so we were doing all the exporting, importing. And there were some workability needs in the software that I wanted to sort of get out of and explore HubSpot. From talking to Brian, and he turned me over to Johnny and Danny, it was going to meet a bunch of our needs HubSpot was. And then when I looked at having our own instance of HubSpot, the cost was fairly prohibitive, I would say, as a medium-sized association. So that just started some generic talks about how we can work together. Brian and his tech team, were willing and able to create a business unit and really start that from scratch. The business unit really hadn't been explored. We had to even explore it with HubSpot if they were going to be comfortable with that relationship of sort of allowing the MGA to sort of be a host of the data with no additional cost or increase to their business. And then we were able to come up with a price and a working relationship that worked for both of our parties. And once the lawyers got involved and got the contract all signed up, we were good to go.
30 pages later.
Dave, same question for you, Roger?
Yeah, I mean, we were in an even more acute situation than Bill, being an even smaller AGA. We had looked at HubSpot and had seen all the information about what they offered and how so many different golf associations were looking into it. And, and then there was also having the Golf Nations and Miltia, which, were great, but they didn't seem to work together efficiently enough. And it seemed like a great thing. And we applaud the MGA for taking leadership on this because, it's been great working with them. And also, going to your point earlier about working with our shared memberships and that sort of thing. We had done that for a couple of years too.
So from a marketing and technology standpoint, Bill and Dave, what is it? Does it save you guys money? Is it made you more effective in communicating with customers? What's the business benefit for you?
Yeah, and speaking from the NYSGA, obviously there was a financial benefit moving away from Golf Nations. We used some of the GiA products for some of the things they did. Obviously moved over our CRM to HubSpot. So there was a significant financial savings, but also efficiency. Like I said, everyone here is familiar with the exporting, importing issues of the past. Some are still doing that. Some have put that in the rearview mirror. So there's been a ton of efficiencies there. What's unique about Dave and I and Brian is we all share the same members. So we have some, and as the software continues to evolve, this will continue to improve. But we have 264 GiA clubs, but we have over 500 member clubs in New York State, some in Rochester, some in the MGA. We're keeping 3 separate databases of key club officials, people at those clubs that now we can all share in. Including looking up, we're all trying to get better players to play in our events. Those names and personnel, I used to have to contact Brian or Chris in his office, be like, hey, we're looking for a certain player. All that information now is shared, and there's a trust there that Brian referred to a while ago. That yes, someone has to be the super user, someone has to have access to all the data and control all the permissions and user, all the user permissions, etc. But being able to share that information and not keep these separate databases has been a big benefit for us so far.
Yeah, and for us, another component is the fact that having OJR through the USGA for our membership renewals and how that kind of flowed seamlessly into the golf hub model was also a plus.
So let's talk about that trust in managing data. One of the things I hear a lot is, well, they're going to have access to my data, or my board's worried that they're going to have access to my data, and they're going to steal my customers, or market to them, all that stuff. Brian, can you talk a little bit about how that's managed, not from a technology standpoint, but just from a practical business standpoint?
Sure, I'll do my best. I think, again, going back to the notion of trust, as the power user, we are responsible for, in effect, 3 different institutions' information. Going back to some of the legal conversation, there is a document that, for all appropriate reasons, it was important to have between our organizations. There's an indemnity, from a data breach point of view, that we take on that exposure. But if I can just kind of expand on, I don't think the MGA really had any stress from a board or leadership perspective in terms of the partitioning of data and who can see what, and they can see us and we can see them. I think, Bill, you probably had a little bit more of a conversation. I don't know if Rochester board did, but from that point of view, again, it's a lot. So much of this is really predicated on a trust, a relationship, building the resume of that. And as a result, for us, it was fairly elegant in terms of starting the process, getting the approval that we needed from really that pyramid of influence.
So I'm going to ask you guys the same question. This is not about the USJ. We didn't ask them to do this. They did this on their own. But from the USJ standpoint, every AGA has their own territory. So there's no competition in my mind, in our minds, that you guys are working to take each other's conference clubs. So that concept, to me, is the overarching concept, and obviously there's the legal contract you guys created about how this works. Having read the contract, so I'm sure that's stuff covered. Bill, from a board standpoint, or David, like, what were those conversations like internally, and the trust that NGA is not going to come in and take over the association?
Yeah, I think we had, as a staff, we had no issues with that. We know how the data works and where everything is. I think there's still some of the old guard on our board, and as you have turnover and board members flow in and flow out, there's still some misunderstandings about what our territories mean. And as much as our board is involved in the 2 or 3 hours, 4 times a year that they're sitting in that room, they really still don't understand that. So it wasn't a long discussion, but there was a brief discussion about why this isn't anything they need to worry about. This is not data. Again, we're not saving social security numbers and banking codes and the nuclear codes in Hubspot. I have all Brian's personal information, of course, but yeah. But it was a very short conversation, and most boards, when you find out that you're going to be more efficient and save a few bucks, they're pretty ready to sign on. So it wasn't a long discussion.
Yeah, I think we were the same. There's a little trepidation at first, naturally, but our board is committed to working together with all 3 organizations, and they could see the benefits too. So it was a short discussion.
So you mentioned save a few bucks. Can you, if you're willing to share dollars, what's the financial benefit?
Well, Brian has taken me to Wingfoot twice a year. Yeah, I haven't taken him up on that yet. No,
but only the East Course.
Right. So you figure HubSpot was probably going to be a buck a gym number. I mean, you're talking we have 44,000 active members, and that's about what we're paying with Golf Nation. So that was pretty equivalent there. The NGA made us an offer that saved us a significant amount of money on that. And honestly, at the point when we were looking at it, it wasn't that much about the money, although that was a big piece of it. But the expertise that they had and what they'd already built, we had what I felt were some short-term needs in terms of the 2 biggest things I wanted to get rid of was I wanted to go to MailChimp and move over to their communications piece, the marketing hub. And in addition, our support was kind of a mess. And all the emails were coming directly to me for Jen. All the emails for our communications team were being spread in sort of a Google mailbox. It wasn't a very efficient system. So by using the support hub and the marketing hub, those were 2 really easy pieces to pick off early for the software, which saved us a ton of time, made it more efficient, made it easier to track, where all of our communications there. We still have to integrate our phones, which is something people talked about yesterday. But that was 2 really low-hanging fruit. And if you look at what we saved on MailChimp, which is probably about $8,000 a year, getting rid of that, in addition being able to unload Golf Nations using OJR through the USGA, the cost savings were really significant, and we were actually able to take almost all of that money and put it into our marketing budget to try to grow membership. So it was a real win-win for that standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, ditto, because we, again, it's even more acutely being even smaller association that it really worked for us. The numbers added up, and it's been great so far.
I think one other thing, Tony, that I've just sort of scratched the surface on from the support standpoint. One thing that's nice is, as we continue to talk about shared services, there's also a benefit there to, as a small association, the middle association. I'm the one who handles all the gym support for the NYSGA. All of the rest of my staff are handling championships and special projects. If something, say I get hit by a bus walking out of Monterey tomorrow, our support hub is already being accessible by the NGA and by the RDGA. And to get those support requests handled in June or July, if something had to happen to me as the only person who was doing that, that's something where the NGA or the RDGA can easily log into those boxes and help me out, reshape those emails, same with any other, support. Now, I get emails all the time for the RDGA and the NGA. I can easily, instead of having to forward those emails off to another person, they're all tracking the same support hub, who's not aware of it or has the NGA. So it's just something that we haven't had to utilize, but it's possible because of the relationship we have.
Brian, how do you manage, as a power user, making sure that your business needs are met, but also then servicing to additional clients? How do you balance that priority?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it in the CEO session yesterday. So, when I go through this analysis of partnerships, we have to be mindful of load bandwidth. Does it have any erosion on pre-existing, product, services, and also time? I think when our team looks at it, I think again, frankly, the spirit of what Mike was really conveying this morning, I think, is incredibly powerful and really resonates through this conversation. But the idea of innovation, risk mitigation, I think all those things that's where I see and we saw the benefit, and that really justified the investment of time. And then the last part is really a growth mentality from our staff, the people that work with the other client associations and our partnered allied associations. They have to want to do this, and that's a dangerous part. So as you think through this evaluation and working with other groups, someone has to be the bearer of most of the responsibility. And we're very fortunate that our team embraces that. They want to do that. So again, from a cost savings, I think the cost side is really on this side of the aisle. From our perspective, it's all the innovation, collaboration, and then there's some meaty things that we can get into because again, with the pre-existing commercial relationship, we had information transfer that had to happen in an archaic pilgrim-like way that now is clicks of a button instead of sending over lists, etc.
So, Dave, maybe from a brand marketing communication, how do you make sure that what's the relationship with the MGA and team? If you want to send something out, do you have the ability to send out what you want, how you want your brand? Are there any limitations to just power?
Yeah, so to start with, obviously there's a little bit of a learning curve, and the support has been fantastic from the MGA side for us. But that said, of course, we all have to get used to using it. And as we put, campaigns together to send out, there's certain bells and whistles you got to check off. And through John DeTemple at the Met, we get a campaign ready to go. We have to ask for approval because it's still a learning process. He can double check and make sure everything that we've done fits with the process, and then he sends it out. And it's not a permanent situation, but it's kind of a safeguard, if you will.
Yeah, good. I just want to pause on that, and part of this is kind of an agreed upon workflow, just making sure that we're all kind of getting used to this system and creating checks and balances until we're really optimized and we're good to go. It's not a control thing, because frankly that is one of those time gobblers that again we're very conscientious of, that we have to get involved with kind of the oversight of some of their communication affairs.
Is the plan then for eventually, from a learning curve standpoint, for them to be able to do a little bit more autonomously, or?
We no longer have a check on our marketing emails communication. We listen
The
maybe
bills pass the test.
Yeah.
We're really only in our first or second month of starting to do that, so yeah.
And then from a branding standpoint, no issues. You've got MGA, Brian's face now, little emails and all that stuff.
They have to
Well,
pay extra for that.
Yeah, we wanted that, but we weren't able to do it. But no, honestly, I mean, it's not the simplest thing in the world. I mean, it's not a turnkey situation where you're going to go in there and become a business unit and everything's going to be hunky dory right off the bat. There were some issues with sending out those emails where the web address would still say MGA Golf, or the some of the templates and frames were still logged back to their instance. So John worked all that out. They have consulting hours with Hubspot and contacts there where they were able to get all that figured out. So I think we worked out a fair amount of kinks for the RDGA in advance. And we were fortunate enough to do it in February and March, where timing really wasn't of the essence. So we were able to work out a lot of those things, and now it's not an issue at all.
It's a click of a button, really, to make sure that you're sending it out from your own email. Right?
And then from a customer journey standpoint, though, I don't know what you were doing prior to this. Is there more ability to customize and segment the communications because of the customer journey that you have?
Yeah, and you can go, those power users, I see Rick here and Mario, and it's a little daunting. I remember going through the workflows and from the community site, and I saw Mario's workflow for, I can't remember if it was a customer journey or what. You'd see that, rectangles and diamonds, and you're going down the list, and you're like, how do I take this and move it over to my own instance of HubSpot and recreate it? So as a business unit, obviously, we're just getting into, we've been with HubSpot maybe 7 months now in our relationship. We picked off the low-hanging fruit early, support and market. One of the things I just met with John a couple weeks ago, we're going to start working on is this customer journey. The nice part is we can clone their customer journey that works, move it over to our business unit, reset the emails instead of pointing to the MGA emails for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 off these lists, move them over to ours. Those of you that have your own instance, it's not, you can't export it and import it from one HubSpot, to another, but as a business unit, and the MGA has been great about this, if they've already created something that works, we don't need to go and figure out how to drag and drop all that stuff again. We can literally clone it and move it over to ours. So the difficult part, or it's not that difficult, the hardest part is creating the list and the list of people you want to get. So when you finally get the segment right for new users in the golf club for over the last 7 days, and you were able to generate that working list, it's literally an automation platform where we can set it and I don't have to worry about that again. So from that standpoint, it's fantastic. Did I answer the question? I got lost in the middle.
Yeah, it's very So Brian, as the power user, when you're contemplating creating business units, did it go as you expected? If you were going to do it again, or some of the larger associations who might be considering offering business, what would you do differently? Or
Yeah, I think there was a learning experience again. I'm more into the why part of this discussion. I think from our point of view, it started geographically. I think we all should have learned at this point it doesn't need to. So I think our instant benefit was symmetry, but it had nothing. It doesn't have to be limited to that. So joke with CAD in Arizona, and we all can think about these things differently. And from the seat I sit in, I'd encourage you all to explore and examine these things, thinking about being bigger than just ourselves. Doing it over again, I think the team was pretty pleased with the experience itself. Our guys went through a pretty difficult, kind of an examination of what do we think this is, what is the time, labor, etc. And they were within like 10 hours of getting it correct over about a 3-4 month journey. So that's really good. But thrilled and thinking bigger picture, thinking about U.S. National development teams and what could be. We're incredibly well positioned to do those things fairly elegantly because we've already done this. So not only pleased with what we've gotten thus far, but excited about what we can do in the future moving forward.
you touched on this a little bit earlier, but from a resource prioritization and cost standpoint, based on whatever the financial need you have, is this a drag on your resources? Is this
Yeah, from our perspective, I wanted to be break even. I don't philosophically or otherwise believe it should be a profit source. I'm not here to leverage these relationships. It goes back to visible and invisible benefits. We do offer, additional services. I do think that's an important part of being the leader. That we can provide some level of service that doesn't have to be outsourced. We speak the language of golf, so we can be an incredible interpreter for our friends. And I think that's the value we offer into this exchange, and they offer equal value, but in different ways.
Same kind of questions for you, Bill and Kate. From timing, ability to run your business, it's saved both of you some money, it's giving you guys some additional resources. What's been the biggest thing you've noticed that was a surprise positively, or something you might rethink about it as a HubSpot business unit user? If someone is considering becoming a business unit of someone else, how would you start thinking about it?
Well, I mean, from our perspective, it's a little bit of a learning curve getting into the HubSpot system if you're not in there already. But that said, the support is there, and we found that, obviously there's a little bit of, if those of you who aren't in HubSpot, there's a little bit of a sticker shock when you start building your segments, and it's not quite the same way that MailChimp works. So you're not going to get the same numbers right off the bat. So that's part of the learning process. I'd say it's really just, stick with it, and once you learn the system, it'll work for you.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Don't be intimidated by it. I remember getting access. I can't remember if I got access to yours or if I was.
I think you did initially.
Yeah, and you see all the tabs on the left and all the things, for every contact there's like 200 fields, and you just look and go, how am I gonna manage all these things and how? Don't worry about all that stuff. HubSpot I think was built so that you can use just the pieces you want, and you can basically ignore the rest. And if there's another module you want to add, or if there's another workflow you want to add, or if there's another process that's important for your business, you can go in and talk to the experts and figure out a way to implement that. So I think once I sort of got past that initial shock of all the fields and all the columns that were there, it was pretty simple to just use the pieces we needed and know that they were going to help our business that way.
So I probably have a couple more questions, but I want to make sure if there's questions in the audience. Any thoughts or questions from anybody about how this works? Yes.
I have several if you don't mind.
Yeah, how about it?
So which hubs are you using, Brian?
Which hubs are you using?
Which hubs are you using?
I have no idea. My tech team is.
They use
Marketing and service.
marketing service, but they also use the sales hub. They're using I think 5 or 6. I think that's more than 5. I don't know. There's
all of them.
I think the MGA has access or is using all.
But you do have sales, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, and how do you find the reporting? My understanding with business units is it may create some difficulty extracting your particular data and report from their particular data. Are you finding that, or is that just
I found that a little bit at first, and the key component for us was contacts versus members. And once I was able to, it's funny, with the timing of Gin Connect, you go into Gin, you think you're going to pull out 31,284, and you get 31,295, and you're like, why is there a difference? Don't worry about it. I mean, unless you're 8,000 short, you're on the right track. So the way it brings in members and contacts was the main key, but I have not had a problem eventually getting to the list numbers that were correct.
okay? And are you doing any other kind of data analysis that's been problematic?
No, not once I figured out that member versus contact thing.
And by the way, I'm working with Jim on the Jim stuff. So.
Nice.
Is Gin Connect connected? Sorry to interrupt. Is Gin Connect connected for all the associations?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would just add that if anybody who's going to use it has to sign the agreements to get access to the centralized pump to pull back that data. So it's available, it just has to be a request.
Yeah, just a couple more, sorry. The service of, you're talking about the support, and you all are able to see each other's tickets, but you have it bucketed in such a way so that you can manage them all separately. Is that?
Correct.
And what, I know you mentioned the emails said MGA at first. What's been the most problematic issue? And I guess for all three of you, it's a question for all three.
Well,
What's
I mean,
the most problematic thing?
Yeah, the drawback is that I can't walk down the hall and get it fixed. So that's the hardest part. Not like John and Danny don't get back to you right away or whatever, but they have their own tasks and their own meetings. And so if you're looking for an answer sometimes in the first 5 minutes, you're not going to get it. I think that's been the only drawback for us. All the problems that we've had so far, we've been able to either completely correct or they aren't fixable within the software. Not everything is going to work the way you want it. We've had to create some new email addresses and email accounts to make sure that things are going to the proper support inboxes. We had to change a little bit of the way we did things to make it work for the software, but that's understandable going in. There hasn't been anything else that I would consider a drawback.
Yeah, I mean, just before being able to say, all right, I need to send this out now and doing it, it takes a little bit longer now, and again, it's not going to be forever, but that check and balances is good because there's a couple things that you might miss being new to the system. So it worked out for us.
I would just add, as a company with 45 full-time and 60 seasonal employees, we're still going through 3 years of onboarding, getting people acclimated. So I don't want to lose sight of that. And it's a little bit of Bill's comment of we've got internal needs and then we have client needs. And as it pertains to our partners, I stress with them that I want them to be in front of the line because they're on the early onboarding phase. So as soon as they're good to go, then we kind of defer back to the internal needs, which tends to be a little bit more weedy and stuff like I can't log in, I don't even know how to turn on the computer.
There you go.
One of the best parts of HubSpot is the constant evolution of, whether it's a new hub in there or new integrations, whatever might come. How have you guys decided to work it out, or have you come up with an instance yet where maybe there's an integration or something that one of these two groups want that doesn't have a use in NGA, and how you're going to bring that in, support it, pay for it, everything else? Has that come up yet?
Not yet.
Like they want to use a phone system that's a different one than you use. How would you handle that when that comes up?
We'll have a conversation.
So following up on Robin's question about emails, I don't know if there's a limitation, like if you buy, say, 1 million emails, does that fall under you, Brian, or is it shared between the business units?
When buying emails, is it coming up to you from a cost standpoint, a purchase standpoint, or is it shared with the users?
Like, is it a limitation of yours? MGA has, let's just say, 1 million emails, and then through your agreements with Rochester and Bill, you give them each 200,000.
Yeah, so the short answer is we absorb the costs, and then we have a very clear kind of path of applicable costs that roll over.
I have a question that I'll say loud, but it's probably this guy right to my right who's going to answer it. Just Golf Genius integration with HubSpot and the timing, where you guys see that coming. If you can just speak to that for a few minutes, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Short answer is we're working on integration right now that will be launched by the end of the year. I'll stand up so folks can see me. So yeah, the integration is pretty straightforward. It's you have an event in Golf Genius with a set of players. You want to push them over to your HubSpot instance. Many of you are doing that already by extracting rosters to a spreadsheet, scrubbing it up a little bit, mapping them to HubSpot contact IDs, the IDs are the golf, and then uploading it to HubSpot in the form of attaching to a custom object, right? So you represent your events. I assume this is a room that knows the speak of HubSpot, right? So custom objects and so forth. So you create a custom object in HubSpot that represents an event, for example, the 2024 Philadelphia Mid-Am, and you want to upload those players. So we're going to turn that manual process of download to a spreadsheet, scrub the spreadsheet, upload to HubSpot into an automated process. And from a user standpoint, it'll be very seamless. So you'll be inside the event, you'll be at the roster level, you'll have an option to say export to HubSpot. When you click that, you get a small pop-up that says hit a drop-down. That drop-down will now reveal all the events that you've already created in HubSpot for that season. You gotta be thinking ahead here. You don't want to see a list of 400 events for the last 10 years, right? So you see all the events that you've created in HubSpot for the current season, and you pick the one that you're trying to push it to. It's very straightforward. I have a tournament in Golf Genius. I want to push it over to an event in HubSpot, pick that event from HubSpot, go, and then those golfers will be mapped over. I make it sound easy. It's actually not easy. Because there's mapping exercises that have to happen there. We've got a set of golfers in Golf Genius, but we need to tie them to those golfers in HubSpot who are contacts, which have no contacts in HubSpot. So there has to be a mapping. We don't just throw names across the wall, right? It has to be mapped to those golfers and their specific HubSpot contact record in HubSpot. So the way we do that, there's a couple of ways to do it. I say it to this room because I'm at a level of Louise that you actually probably care. So we take the golfer, we know their GIN ID on the TM side, and through an API call to GIN, we can say, for this GIN number, please return the HubSpot contact ID. Now, why is it in GIN? Well, because we have an integration from GIN and HubSpot that our team, our development team, working closely with USGA built 2 years ago, right? So we can say, okay, here's a GIN number. Jen, please give us back the HubSpot contact ID. Okay, great, now we have the HubSpot contact ID for the golfer, so we can push it over to your HubSpot instance to say, here's this golfer who played in a particular event. Long story short, you get a list of golfers hanging off of every event, right? And for every golfer, you would then see the list of events that they've played in. I will add one more thing very quickly. We're implementing HubSpot ourselves, completely independent of anything that you folks do, very different than you're using, but we're adopting it as a core product to run Golf Genius internally, right? So to basically manage all of our customers' green grass facilities, public courses, private clubs, associations, and so forth who buy our software. So we're using all the same constructs you are. We'll use companies to represent our customers. We'll use leads to represent the process of selling different products to customers and tracking all the things that we do. So even though we use it a lot differently than you use it, we understand it quite well. You guys remember Rory Luck, who used to run our account management team. Rory Luck is now our HubSpot guru. He's learned a ton. He's actually learned it from Gareth, who worked with us as a consultant to help teach us, the ins and outs of HubSpot. So over the last 2 years, starting with our building the integration from GiA to HubSpot, and now continuing with our work to integrate TM and HubSpot and adopt HubSpot on our own, we're starting to collect quite a bit of knowledge and expertise about HubSpot, both at a functional level and a technical level. So we're on the journey with it. Hands go up, yes.
I was just going to say, as you started to develop this connection, have you tested the business unit segmentation of data between two associations with a TM?
We haven't, but the key question I asked the other day, and I think Rick answered it for me, is when you authenticate, when you log in, are you authenticating to a business unit inside a larger HubSpot account? So for example, Bill, when you log in, are you identifying yourself as I am a member of a particular business unit? And does that partition the experience to some degree? So for example, if Bill creates the 2024 New York State Mid-Am as a custom object in HubSpot, is Dave going to see it, and is Brian's team going to see it, or is it partitioned? And I think the answer is it's separately authenticated. I think Rick, you mentioned this, and there is some level of partitioning. Great. So what that means is when you connect on the TM side, when you set up the integration, you have to do a quick step that says I want to connect my TM account to my HubSpot account, and that process is very simple. You click on something, we take you to a HubSpot screen where you enter your HubSpot credentials. So you're identifying yourself in HubSpot, and of course you're identifying the account that you're attaching to. So at that stage, Bill, you would enter your credentials, which would tie to your business unit inside NGA's larger HubSpot account. From that point forward, when you're pushing rosters over to your events, you'll see a list of your events. And when Dave, you do it, you'll see a list of your events. And Brian, your team does it, you'll see a list of your events. Now, that's how I expect it to work. As you know, the world's messy. Maybe there are a few more wrinkles we have to figure out along the way, but like everything else, we will listen, learn, and try to improve work with you guys in the process.
So did I hear you right? End of year?
Yeah, we're working on it right now. So we have working prototypes, working through the process. So pretty confident it's possible it spills in the next year, I guess, but our team is saying it'll be built and launched by this year, by the end of this year. We've been talking about this for a year. Last year I stood up here and said, well, we're going to work on it in 2024. Our goal is to get it done by sometime this year, sometime by the end of 2024. That's still our goal at the moment. We are on track for that.
I guess the other question I had was in terms of authenticating someone and getting their HubSpot.
Am I talking too much here?
Well, I just want to make sure, I'm trying to keep this at kind of at a high level. And this to me sounds like the peanuts talking about, I have no idea what you guys want, which is fine.
Yeah, it's helpful.
I just want to make sure the audience is.
Geeking out, sorry. Geeking out on. I can take this offline rather than
No, ask the question.
Well, the question is related to HubSpot because it's unfortunately what we find with Golf Genius is that we don't always have people with a GIN number that are playing in the tournaments.
Yeah.
And so authenticating that way might be difficult. And also they oftentimes have a different email address in GIN that they do.
That's a very good point. So let's talk about the hallway and what to hear more about that. There's probably more that we have to do. The short answer to that. Last comment, and I'll stop. We see this as the first step in integrating TM with HubSpot. I know that there are aspirations to do more, and every time I'm asked that, I say, It's more complicated than it sounds on the surface. Yes, it'd be great if we could triangulate GiN and TM and HubSpot, yes. But we have to do it in a really thoughtful way, make sure we don't have data flying in 3 different directions and overwriting things like, oh, I have 2 different birthdays, which one's right now? What's the golden source of information? There's no easy answer to that, but I am saying that this will be the first step in integrating TM to HubSpot, and we will listen and evolve and find other ways, other useful ways to integrate TM with HubSpot over time, while we're on the same journey, by the way.
2 questions, really. Brian, have you had issues with data hygiene? So that's 1. How did you rectify that? 2, is Danny and John D more of like a CRM administrator moving forward to help service the 2 associations there, or how do you see it in your role?
Yeah, I mean, hygiene, and I think you're talking about as kind of post-migration. Yeah, I mean, data hygiene for us in our area is a holistic issue. And we continue to work on that. I think the answer is, and to be honest with you, Bill is probably going to be the correct person to answer this. But to the best of my knowledge, no. And again, that's one of the benefits for sure for us is just the multiple data points to be able to point to the correct information. What was the other part of that in terms of their role and the time that they're spending?
Yeah.
It's interesting, Rick. So it's one of those where this is all fairly new for us, and that's why the spirit of this conversation is case study, right? We're just on the early side of what we probably will all see as a trend. That team, and we're at this time of the year where we're going through self-assessments. We do pause, we do study, everyone's going to time benefit study as we set for 25, and in the next couple of weeks it'll unveil where are they spending their time, are the percentages where we talked about them being, we have to reset that. And I would just add that for the group, came up in the CEO session yesterday, I mean the MGA in my 7 years as executive, we were spending an incredible amount of money in the tech space. Like our line item for tech is 2x what it used to be. It's almost $500,000 right now, and it's not going to get less. I can't imagine we're going to get some magical wand savings anytime soon. So between marketing and tech, when Mike gets up and talks about, be aggressive and continue to double down, et cetera, that's the area that we think we're doubling down. We've got, I jokingly say, 2.5 people in tech exclusively, horizontally, organizationally today, half because the person has admin duties as well as tech responsibilities departmentally. And we're adding a 3rd person. I think we just got an offer sheet signed the other day. So it's an area of focus for us. And Rick, you're asking a very valid question because I do need to make sure that team spends enough time on innovation and doesn't get bogged down on service center. And then separately and as an aside, we do a lot of internal outsourcing for IT, with Logically and otherwise. I think everybody knows them by name, they've been mentioned, but John Temple has been with us for 24 years, Danny Frame. These are wildly successful technology people. They have backgrounds and have studied in the HubSpot language, so they're really, really sharp. But what I don't want them doing is becoming this little weedy minutia coming down the hall and Brian Mahoney can't figure out how to turn my computer on kind of crap. They need to stay in their lane at a very high, sophisticated, grow our business level.
Any questions from you? So something I've been thinking about, John Temple, for example, he's already understand. Yes. A lot of folks who are going to HubSpot have to hire people, or like you guys, you have to figure out how to run that language and that. What are your thoughts on kind of as more associations are hiring people, creating a cohort?
It's a co-op.
Co-op, or some way where they're all talking to each other from a career standpoint and a little bit of a, talking person to person, because you're not going to be able to help them get to that next level, but maybe some of these peers can help create a better job satisfaction by the way things go on.
Yeah. In terms of like kind of career development and I think we're the way we look at all of our employees, we want to make sure that we're invested in their development, personally and professionally, and we've chosen in this instance to, go to those industry leaders to define that. I think at some point, this community, because of this being such an in vogue topic, we'll probably see more community-based kind of gatherings and forums. I thought you were going into more of a, as we see needs, that we have an exclusive partner that we all cooperatively kind of employ and leverage, because I think as we've all been through this, especially the elders in the room, golf is just a very unique language. Every IT person says they can solve everything. When we start talking to them about golf language related things, it's like, it's a filibuster. So I do think that it is niche-y. I do think it's worth, as a community, continuing to think about investing it. It's a conversation, again, that surfaced yesterday at the CEO session, where coming out of the IAGA strategic planning, when we think about new products and services that Bill Walker can oversee, the idea of some of these shared IT-related services might be something coming down the pipe.
So we're about out of time. Just any kind of final comments from each of you? We start with Bill and David and Brian.
Yeah, I would go back to what I said earlier, which is just don't be intimidated by the software. Don't be intimidated by the scope of it and all the things that you've heard it can do. Find a couple items that maybe you're thinking about in your association. If you're thinking about getting into HubSpot or thinking about being a business unit, that a problem that HubSpot can easily solve, that a bigger association or partner association has already solved. And maybe talk to them about just implementing, your own instance and bringing in that one piece just to get started. I know everyone here wants to help everybody else out. That's why we're all here. And I would say just keep exploring those options.
Yeah, and to add to that, the help that's available within HubSpot obviously is also very good. Not only the support from the MGA, but yeah, and I would recommend anybody that's interested in it just taking a closer look, and I would recommend following up on it.
I think my message would be, if you have an IT question, do not fucking ask me. But if I can be of any service to anybody in the room from a why perspective, I think our team has enjoyed going through the examination. If you're thinking about being a power user, being a business unit, and you want us to play Cupid, we don't have a dog in the fight, but happy to help find and be matchmakers and friends. And the last thing is I spend just a grotesque amount of time with lawyers. I feel very confident that the relationship that we have makes our boards comfortable. I know that we're very comfortable with handshakes, but in this world it's really helpful. I don't know when the bus hits Bill or me or Dave or Tim. So if anybody can benefit from some of the work that we've invested in that regard, I would just ask you to come to me personally. I would operate in confidence. And happy to really help you benefit from the work that we put in with our general counsel, kind of getting to the right place.
Thank you.